Your phone buzzes at 12:04 a.m. You almost don't check it. That single decision, checking or not checking, is about to split your life into two versions. You just don't know it yet. You're at the kitchen counter of a one-bedroom rental that always smells faintly of the neighbor's cooking. Work laptop open, spreadsheet full of numbers that were never going to add up to anything. Rent's due in 4 days and there's $340 in checking. You've done this math so many times it doesn't even scare you anymore. It just sits there, a low hum in the background of everything. The TV is on low. A local anchor is talking about a jackpot nobody's claimed, $196 million, a record for the state. She mentions the gas station it was sold from. You know that gas station. You glance up out of habit more than curiosity. And then you stop chewing. You know that face on screen. You've bought coffee from that man for 3 years. Your hand is already moving toward your bag before your brain catches up to why. There's a receipt-thin strip of paper folded into your wallet behind an old parking stub. You bought it 8 days ago on a whim you don't even remember having. You unfold it like it might dissolve. First number, match. Second number, match. Your ears start ringing. You check the rest in one breath, refusing to let yourself slow down. All 5 numbers, the bonus ball. Exact. Your hand is shaking so hard you have to set the ticket down on the counter just to read it again. This isn't relief. This isn't joy. This is your nervous system trying to process a fact your mind refuses to hold. You are dual citizen, a passport from the UK, one from Australia. And you know, with sudden and total clarity, that neither country will touch a cent of this. No tax, no clawback, no fine print. $196 million. Every dollar of it yours. You don't sleep that night. You just sit at the table staring at a folded piece of paper that is quietly ending the only life you've ever known. Somewhere between disbelief and terror, a new life is already starting to build itself around you. Morning comes and you don't call anyone. Not the number on the back of the ticket, not your mother. You sit in a Starbucks for 2 hours, phone face down, scrolling nothing, needing the version of the world where this hasn't happened yet to last just a little longer. Eventually you call in sick to work. Your voice doesn't even have to fake the shake in it. The claims line is calm, practiced, almost bored, like this happens every day, which for them it does. They give you an address downtown, glass tower, marble lobby, an elevator that requires a key card just to select the 19th floor. A woman in a charcoal suit examines your ticket under UV light for what feels like an hour. Then she looks up and simply says, "Congratulations, it's real." Something in your chest finally exhales. They bring in a private wealth advisor from a bank you'd never heard of before this morning. The kind of bank that doesn't advertise, doesn't need to. He has the calm of someone who has delivered this exact conversation hundreds of times. He talks about trusts, anonymity structures, ways to receive the money without your name ever touching a public record. You remember vaguely a video you watched once at 2 a.m. about lottery winners who vanished into paperwork on purpose. You nod along like you understand every clause. You sign 7 documents you only half read. 3 days later, you open a banking app you didn't have a week ago. $196 million. You just stare at it. Not smiling, not crying, just staring, the way you'd stare at a number that doesn't belong to the same universe as rent and groceries, and the panic that used to live behind your ribs. For the first time in your adult life, you feel something you don't have a name for yet. It isn't happiness, it's power. But power like this doesn't stay quiet for long. And the first person it changes everything for isn't you. You tell yourself you'll ease into it. You go back to work Monday like nothing happened. You sit through a budget meeting where your manager explains, with real gravity, why the team can't get new monitors this quarter. You almost laugh out loud. You could buy the building, the block, possibly the man's house. You last 12 days. The resignation email takes you 4 minutes to write. You burn through unused vacation days to cut your notice from a month to a week. Your manager says he's sorry to see you go, in the tone people use when they mean they're sorry about the hiring paperwork. You feel nothing, which somehow is its own kind of strange. There's one person at that job who actually mattered, Marcus, from 3 desks over. Beers after work most Fridays. Both of you venting about the same broken systems, the same bosses who forgot your names in meetings. At your goodbye drinks, you watch him laugh at his own joke, and you don't tell him a single true thing, but you make yourself a private promise. When the dust settles, Marcus gets paid back. All of it. You just don't know yet what all of it is going to look like. And at home, a much harder conversation is already waiting for you. You have a partner. You can't walk into your shared two-bedroom with 9 figures and no explanation. So you sit her down at the table you bought together from a flat pack store 4 years ago, and you tell her you need to confess something. You open a second account on your phone, show her the number. $3.8 million. You built the lie in the shower that morning, and it comes out smoother than it should. A crypto position from 2 years back. A project that was about to implode in a rug pull. You tell her you saw it collapsing in real time and pulled the funds out through the back door before the founders could vanish with everyone else's money. You tell her it's clean, untraceable, that the people who'd want it back are the ones who stole it in the first place, and they're not exactly in a position to come asking questions. She doesn't understand blockchain, and you know that. You built the story, so the fear registers without the logic ever needing to hold up. She's quiet for a long moment. Then she smiles and hugs you. She spent years watching a version of life on her phone that never once included her. Now, suddenly, it might. The lie works exactly the way you built it to, because some things, it turns out, money can rewrite instantly, and you're about to feel that for the first time. Money on a screen doesn't feel real. You need to hold it, feel it. You walk into a dealership the next afternoon and go straight for the car under the spotlights. A deep, racing green coupe, hand-stitched interior, the kind of car you used to watch review videos of at 1 a.m., imagining a life that wasn't yours. The salesman clocks your hoodie and sneakers and drifts toward you slowly, already deciding you're just here for photos. You point at the coupe, then out the window, at a pearl-white SUV on the lot. That one's mine. That one's my partner's, paying in full. He hesitates, until you slide a black card across the counter that he clearly recognizes and you don't. His posture changes instantly, like someone flipped a switch behind his spine. You sit in the driver's seat, leather that smells like money, a gear shift that feels machined out of a single block of steel. You start the engine and the outside world goes completely silent behind soundproof glass. You buy it without a single test drive. The next day you walk into a boutique and buy a watch that costs more than a year of your old rent. You strap it on. It feels less like success and more like a weight. You wear it to the grocery store that evening for milk, and standing in line behind someone quietly counting coupons, a wave of guilt hits you so hard, you pull your sleeve down over it before you reach the register. You tell yourself it'll feel different somewhere else, so you leave the country to find out. You book London, not just a flight, an experience built for people who've never waited in a line in their life. Priority check-in, a lounge with champagne older than you are, a private suite on the plane, a flight attendant plating caviar with a small silver spoon while she makes up your bed mid-flight. You land, and a driver is already holding a sign with your name spelled correctly. The hotel in Knightsbridge gives you the top floor. Staff who somehow already know what you want before you've said it out loud. You stand on the balcony wrapped in a robe that costs more than your old monthly salary, looking out over a skyline that suddenly seems to belong to you a little bit. For a moment, the panic that used to live in your chest is completely, totally silent. You start to understand something uncomfortable. The whole world is built to bend around people who have this kind of money. It always was. You just never had the key before. But real wealth doesn't just change your life. It demands you decide who else gets to share it. 3 months pass before you text Marcus. You meet at the same crowded coffee shop near your old office, the one with the window seat you used to dread going back to work from. He shows up tired, venting about some new software the company forced on everyone. You let him talk. You genuinely miss this, even if you can't relate to a single word of it anymore. You give him a version of the crypto story. Early investment, lucky timing, finally paid off big. Then you slide a check across the table, made out to him, $300,000. Next to it, a key fob, his dream car, the one he's had as a phone wallpaper for 2 years. Parked downstairs, insured for 2 years, with 3 grand loaded onto a card just for gas. Quit tomorrow, you tell him. Go see something. Anything. He doesn't say a word. He just stares at the check like it might be a typo. You hug him before you leave, and it feels less like a reunion and more like a goodbye you didn't plan on giving. You're not done. Your mother's been trying to sell the family house for 2 years. Too many memories since your father passed. Too much weight in every room. You buy it anonymously through an agent, well above asking so she never has to know it was you who freed her from it. Then you buy her a new place in a neighborhood she'd never have let herself dream about. When she finds out, she cries on the phone in a way you've never heard before. Relief, grief, and joy tangled into one sound. You wire off your sister's mortgage the same week. She sobs. Her husband thanks you like you've handed him back a decade of stress in one afternoon. In a single season, you've rewritten 3 lives that aren't yours. Yours, meanwhile, is about to come apart. The garage at your new estate keeps growing. A screaming V12 that you drive purely for the sound of it. A blacked-out SUV for winter. None of it fills anything. You and your partner start living in different wings of the same house. She has the handbags, the jewelry, the personal trainer, the entire feed she used to scroll and ache over. But something has gone quiet between you that no amount of money seems able to fix. Because that's the thing nobody warns you about. The money didn't repair the relationship. It just removed the pressure that had been quietly holding it together. She asked for a divorce without raising her voice. No tears, just done. You don't fight it. You sit across from her in a lawyer's boardroom and offer $2 million, plus her parents' mortgage cleared, if she signs today. She hesitates. This is more money than she ever imagined touching. But the room, the lawyers, the silence, it's a lot to sit inside. She signs. She glances back once on her way out the door. Then she's gone, and 2 years of your life leave with her. And that's when the real spiral starts. You have close to $180 million liquid, and for the first time, absolutely no one to spend an evening with. Private jets to Vegas become a Tuesday habit. Penthouse suites you barely sleep in. Nights where you drop tens of thousands on bottle service, surrounded by people who only know you by the card in your hand. Every mirror you pass shows the same thing. Bright lights, hollow eyes, a smile that isn't reaching anywhere real. One morning at 5 a.m., sitting in a VIP section full of strangers whose names you never bothered to learn, a single thought cuts through the noise. What am I even doing here? You stand up. You leave without saying goodbye to anyone. You fly home and stop answering the numbers that used to feel like belonging. Because the ending to this story was never about the money at all. You end up on the balcony of your own massive silent house, watching security lights sweep the tree line below. No wife, no real friends left in the room. Just a glass of something expensive and the sound of your own breathing. It is without question a lonely kind of life. But you take a breath and something settles. You'll never again dodge a call from a collections agency. Never again sit at a desk for 40 hours pretending to care about someone else's weekend. Never again check a price tag before you order. You didn't buy happiness. You bought a wall between yourself and every fear that used to run your life. You take another sip and let a small, quiet smile settle in. You didn't beat the system. You just finally, quietly survived it.